All people want to do is make a connection with you. What should you say? What should you do? You should add value to my life. You should, instead of just worrying about bragging, instead of just worrying about showing off, how about actually help me?
How do you build a network, run a profitable business, and make an impact? Oh, and have a personal life at the same time? That's the question, and this podcast is the answer. I'm your host, Chaz Wilson, husband, father of 5, author of the book 5+1, president and co-founder of Master Networks Inc., a national networking organization. Look, each week I bring you successful entrepreneurs who will share success strategies of how to effectively build a network, add valuable wisdom to your journey, and help you succeed. Welcome to Connect, Share, and Prosper.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Connect, Share, Prosper. My guest today, let me tell you about my guest today. You guys listen, before I go too far, make sure you are ready to take notes and you are focused and paying attention to today's episode. My guest today, the father of one, he lives in New York. He is a former TV producer and development executive. He's worked with people like Barbara Walters, Steve Harvey, Grant Cardone, Mel Robbins, and he's even helped launch networks like Oxygen Network and personality-based networks like the Grant Cardone Network and daytime talk shows like The View. Please welcome Hank Norman to Connect, Share, Prosper. Welcome, Hank, to our show.
Thank you, Chaz. That was a very nice introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's our honor to have you on this show today. And I was just telling Ricardo and you, Hank, that like the first time I met you was heard of you and saw you was at Grant Cardone's 10X conference in Las Vegas. And like there was a lot of people that got up and taught, but you had me captivated from the moment you walked on the stage. Your energy, your excitement, everything. And I know this is different because we're on a podcast, but like we talked about this just before we got started, and you had mentioned in your message that it's important to become a celebrity. First of all, I want to start there. We're gonna hear a little bit more about your story, but tell me why that's important. If I'm a local real estate agent, I'm a local insurance agent, why does it matter that I become famous in my industry?
Yeah, it's funny, Chaz. I actually have had, as you might imagine, saying that for some reason. What's funny about it is it presses buttons in people, right? Like fame has this very negative connotation. Like I've had arguing matches with people of like, I don't want to be famous. And it's like, okay, well, fame doesn't have to be the negative thing you're saying in your mind. And we all have this idea of like the negative consequences. But fame today, I mean, it's very simple, right? You want more attention. More people that know you and your business, the more you're going to sell. It's not really that simple. It's not, there's no magic to it. Fame is more people. And guess what has happened today? It's not just you being more famous. It's more people and you having a connection. Fame has radically changed. Like it's nothing like it used to be. Look at Will Smith's Instagram, right? Like That's what it's like to be a big star today. Actually give people access to you. How many people do you know? That's the question. That's fame.
So I think now I go like 8 different directions off that. But so let me back up a little bit here. How did you get started in working with, TV shows and some of the famous people that I mentioned here, Barbara Walters, Steve Harvey, Grant Cardone, Mel Robbins? I know you have a great connection and story with Mel Robbins I want to hear about. How did that happen? Like, was that something you set out to do, or did that sort of happen along the path of the things you were already doing?
Well, yeah, I mean, like anything in life, right? It's like that 50-50 or whatever percentage is you showing up and doing, and then the rest you collecting and doing because it's the thing you love in your personality. And starting it, I've only really worked in television my entire career. And as I started to move on and as I started to work on projects, what I started to notice personally, and what I've always loved my whole life, and you saw the second 10X talk. At the first 10X talk, I really did talk about my love for celebrities and getting famous and listening to Bill Cosby and Steve Martin and Richard Pryor and comics and this whole idea of like the personality being the center of any really famous brand, right? I mean, Humphrey Bogart, you can just name anybody who's famous and you're naming a person. That same thing applies today, and I've always loved that. And I arrived at working with the Mels and the Grants and starting The View with Barbara and Bill and looking at personality as this thing that we've all always known and what social media has proved to be crazy correct, right? Which is you're the center of your brand, your personality, how you are as a person, and how you show up in business. Those two pieces, like if you follow Grant at all, I mean, now he's been on vacation and traveling the world. It's like, I want Grant to get back to more business from me. Like seeing Grant's personal side is I'm like, Grant, give me more business oriented stuff. But it's that mix, right? Who you are and how you show up. Fame is you letting people into your life today, dude. And I've always just loved that. And as I launched shows and worked with people, I just saw that it was really about the individual personality. Everything centers around who you are and how you show up in front of a room full of people.
So you're working on TV and you have this transition where you start to work with, like you said, these celebrities. How did you make that jump? Like, who was first? Was there somebody that came in? Was you were like, man, I'm done with TV. I want to go here. Like, how did that transition happen? I
was director of development at ABC Disney. I had just finished launching and canceling the Tony Danza show into daytime syndication. And what's funny is in a few days, Mel Robbins will launch her nationally syndicated daytime talk show. My business partner walked in with Mel. I signed Mel to a holding deal at ABC Disney it was either 9 or 10 years ago, literally now. And Mel had never done anything in the media. There was no social media. There was nothing to have done in the media. Mel got a call from somebody at the Donnie Deutsch show at the time, and they wanted her to show up, and she just panicked about what do I do when I go on TV?
Yeah.
And a friend of hers put her in touch with Steve Carless, and Steve made a meeting at ABC Disney to take Mel out and see what kind of deals he could get her. Both he and I and my boss at the time, Ronnie Selig, who had launched Rosie O'Donnell and The View with me, we loved Mel. And I told Mel, even though you've never done anything in daytime TV, here's the deal. I paid her a holding deal, which means she can't do anything else. And I said, let's treat our year together as I'm just going to teach you television. And Steve had gotten her a drive time show on Sirius. He knows Scott Greenstein over at Sirius. Got Mel a drive time show on what was then called Lime. It was his own little sub talk channel. And Mel had a 9 a.m. show. I was her sidekick, and I trained Mel. I said, great, we're doing radio, but let's just act like it's TV. It's 4 acts, A block, B block, C block, D block. Here's how you do ins and outs here. And Mel texted me just the other day. Thank you for that lesson, baptism by fire 9 years ago, because now she's launching that daytime talk show. So Mel was the beginning of me saying, this can happen. I want to do this thing. I want to help people monetize their own fame and realize their own business potential by looking into this lens and monetizing their life this way. And that's when Mel.
So I want to go there. I want to go tactically here in just a second, but I have a curiosity question as I'm thinking about it. So when you started working with Mel, obviously you were confident in what you could do in TV. You'd been in that world, right? You'd been in that space. Okay. But were you confident you could turn Mel, kind of get her platform out there? Or was it like, gosh, you're also testing yourself during this to say, hey, can I transfer this to somebody else?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was not only a big test to see whether Mel could do it, because Mel was completely untested, but it was also whether I was going to leave the only type of work I knew, which was working for bigger organizations like ABC Disney, and now saying, now I'm going to take the leap. So it was a leap on both sides, right? It was like whether I could do the job and whether it was, and it really wasn't Mel and Steve. It was the three of us for 3 years. And before social media, it was, we got Mel a major Fox show. Like, it had to be big media or you didn't make it. So it was tough, and it was tough 10 years ago.
Yeah. So that's changed a lot now, right? That's changed. So how do I use, as you said, how do I use this?
Yes.
Now, instead of getting on the major networks, these become major networks, right? I mean,
yeah, you are this is like, that was what we helped Grant do. What GrowthCon was an extension of was launching the Grant Cardone network with him and saying, how do you be your own network? And Grant was perfect, because that was 7 or 8 years ago. We're like, dude, have your own network, do your own shows, stop worrying about whether you can get greenlit by a development executive, which he hates. He hates that whole idea and refuses to play by their rules. Like, dude, run your own network. And he's like, okay. And so we did. So that's when it was whatever it takes. And now he shifted it to more even personal. It went from whatever it takes network to the Grant Cardone network.
Yeah. And now there's other people on the network and they have their own shows and all this stuff. So, okay. So what's one thing, like I said, I'm the local provider. where do I start? How do I start to get my name out there? And what's the simplest way to start taking
Chaz,
action?
let me tell you, this is something not only do I know very well, because now I've switched to helping solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, business people. I'm one. And so I understand this space very well. And what I mean this space, I don't mean the media space, I mean the head space. What do I do, right? It sounds trite, but it really is as simple as looking at your day and saying, how can I take pieces of my day and share them with the world? How many times am I willing to do that exercise? Morning. I normally tell people to just look at it in the threes: the morning, the afternoon, and the evening, and pick one time in each of those pieces and say, this is something I can talk about that will add value to my audience.
So it's something you said before we went live, though, is how many times a day do I need to do this? Like, because I'll be honest, I hesitated with this when I first started, and I reached out to you guys because I see what you're doing with amazing people, and I saw your 10X, and I said to Corey, my COO, I'm like, I got to meet this guy. Your energy was out of this world. Of all the speakers that came out, I mean, I think you were standing up, you were sitting down, you threw the chair across the stage or something like that. You were just and I'm like, this guy's energy is infectious, and I need to know what he's doing. And I, somewhere in there, I trust what he's saying about, number one, the products you've produced, but yourself, the message you were sharing. And so when I started, I was like, oh, I'm posting one time a day. And I remember talking to you guys, and Steve was like, one time a day?
Right.
Like, what are you thinking?
Right.
I'm like, okay, how do I up the game?
So here's the thing, like anything, right? Like literally the best metaphor, and I'm waiting for it to break down, but I use it so many times, and so many people use it back to me. It's the gym, right? It's exercise. If you want to just jog one time a week, then that's how fit you are. That's what you get what you get, right? I mean, okay. So you go running for 15 minutes once a week. That's what shape you and your business are in.
Yeah,
okay.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, so I'm posting one time. It's just not good. I got to get out there every day. And I got to, like you said, just start with this 3 times a day, morning, midday, the evening, post something. What about those that say which network or which platform should I post it on?
I'm agnostic at this stage. Whatever you do, that if you have a following already, or some people, or you're more visual and Instagram is the place to be. Most people, it's still Facebook, and it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like somewhere in between those 3 things. It's not complicated. We overcomplicate it. Here's the reason. We don't need to go down this rabbit hole, Chaz, but it's the one I spend a lot of time in when I'm actually coaching people. Everything you're talking about, we all know the answers to. These are all fear-based concerns.
So why do people fear it then?
We're just like we are. I mean, I remember having my first tape recorder and hearing my voice. I didn't watch my first GrowthCon until the following year when I had to do another speech, and I was like, I guess I have to watch the speech. I don't want to see I know how crazy I am on stage. I don't know. I know something's wrong with me. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see myself. I don't like hearing my own voice. Nobody does.
So you have those same fears that
everybody does.
About, right? Yeah. So I get it. I remember talking to you guys, and it's hard for me to do the personal thing. Part of it's protective of the family, right? There's a little bit of that, but I don't know. I struggle.
Them from what? Let's go down that rabbit hole. Protect them from
Let's do it. Like, do this. We're opening this up. I don't know. Criticisms of my family.
So what? So somebody
I get it.
That.
I'm super protective, right?
I know. Of what though? Of a comment somebody makes. You're ugly.
Right.
You're stupid.
Yeah.
You're wrong. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you said this before we started. Like, you can be polarizing, and why is that important though? Well,
that's important. So it's a trait. What's weird is I'm polarizing because how my dad raised me and being picked on as a kid. But it's a quality most people have to acquire because we learn to be polite in normal society. So it is something you have to overcome. Normally, I spend a lot of time helping people overcome that first, that first reaction we have to recording ourselves or watching ourselves back, putting ourselves out there. That's a fear.
So how have you stepped through that to say, so what, when they make those comments and those things? Like, how do you?
For me, because how I came up and was being picked on and small and being a little kid and being picked on, I grew that outer skin, that layer I already had. So most people have to acquire that later. Like you got to get used to saying and putting your ideas out there and being like, either I'm going to stand up behind it and get to know where they're coming from, which I help a lot of people do, make that connection, or just ignore it. But that thick skin has to come from practice, dude. There's no other way around it.
And there's another point to that too. You guys told me one time we put an Instagram post together, and I got a couple of negative things, and my team was like, "Oh my gosh, some people like disagreed with what we said," and I, we brought it up on a call, and you guys said, if nobody's disagreeing and if nobody's like making those kinds of comments, you're not saying anything that's valuable.
Yeah.
And
you got to. Here's the thing: you got to stand out, so you can't be saying the same things everybody's been saying.
Yeah.
You got to say something new.
So again, here I am in this local service provider. And by the way, you guys, we're listening to Hank Norman on Connect Share Prosper. This is episode 74. If you have a question for Hank, like this is your time. This guy works with the greats, the legends. He's helped create them as legends, working side by side. How much value is it? It's like, I coached high school sports for a while. There's this idea of the player on the field and the coach, right? How much of it's the coach? How much of it's the player? How do you look at that mix?
Well, that's the other analogy. Once you go down the, I'm your coach and go to the gym, then everyone's like, still, I can't do this and I can't do that. And at some point, like I can give anybody this, and this. You still have to be the one to press record, show up and say, this feels risky to a lot of people. There's an element of risk to it to me. Like I get it. When you press record and look in that camera, we all know, like my daughter just came home. I don't know why they got home from school so early on the first day. My daughter, even before she could speak, I literally remember her, as soon as she would turn the phone sideways and go like this, her behavior would change. As a toddler, before she had the capacity to have language, she knew that meant I'm being judged by my performance is being captured. Like this is bigger than me. Like we all know that. We all know judgment's coming once the camera goes on. We all know there's something else. We're going to judge our performance. Somebody's not going to like us. It has this story unto itself. And pushing through that is a muscle, dude. It really is.
Okay. So are there rules, guys? Go ahead and shoot your questions on here if you're listening Facebook Live for Hank. So are there rules for like what I should shoot, what I should say, what I shouldn't say? Because I have a business
Here's
reputation.
the simplest rules, Chaz, and it's harder than you think. And for some reason, this blows everyone's mind. And because I'm through the looking glass, I don't know how or why. This is a one-on-one. You're not here. You're not behind the camera. You're inside here. So when you look in that lens, everyone, particularly with Facebook Live, Facebook has been a bad media trainer for many people. Many people still have the propensity to start a Facebook Live or any video for that matter and go, hey, everybody. And no, there is no everybody. This is
so good
connection. Mm-hmm. This is just say you. Hey, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining me today. Mm-hmm. And look in that lens and you're talking to me. You're talking to one person at every single time. All people want to do is make a connection with you. What should you say? What should you do? You should add value to my life. You should, instead of just worrying about bragging, instead of just worrying about showing off, how about actually help me? How about actually put me before the insecurities and all the fears of what should I say and what should I do? You know what you should do? Help, care about me.
I love that you just took it to the individual level, right? Like, or I get on a Facebook Live, somebody announces, do the Facebook Live, and they're like, okay, well, let's wait 10 minutes for everyone to start getting on I'm here.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Plus lives are great, except the replay lives what about in a week from now? What about in a year from now?
Yeah. Yeah. So powerful. So, and Facebook Live though is a great resource to connect with audiences, as you just mentioned, if you're doing it correctly.
Correct. It all is, but you have to bear in mind, you are making a one-on-one connection. The sale is you convincing yourself that when you're standing alone in your living room, that when you talk into that lens and this feels like a performance, right? There's no one here. You're making a human connection. I'm looking you in the eye right now. I know that. And I'm looking into a void. Right.
But you're able to make that connection. So powerful. Love it. So you're listening to this and you want to ask Hank a question. He will answer you specifically, not the group. He will answer your question directly. Right. So no, I mean, it's a good lesson for us to constantly remember. I think we look at a thing that says, 8 or 10 people live or 20 people looking at a live, and you think I've got to talk to 20. It's actually no different than being on stage. You really need to just talk to one.
Correct.
When you're on stage.
It's also, as I've found, it's a diffusion of responsibility to accountability to show up and actually be present to people. So the more I'm the center of everyone's attention, hey, everybody, thank you all for having me here. I don't owe any of you anything. I'm different. I'm special. You're plebeians. Let's just move on. That's all ego play. The more you actually center on helping me and speaking to an individual, now you got a lot more responsibility, dude. Now you owe me.
So someone said, would you stay away from political or religious views as a business owner?
No, Grant actually converted me long ago. The first power players I ever did with him on Grant's network, he was like, if I was he didn't convince me at the time. This was like 7 or 8 years ago. And I was like, I mean, it's not always a play for you. Like if it's part of you and your personality, it's a way to get attention. So I'm not for it or against it. Again, I'm for what you think works for you in your brand. So if you want to be the Trump supporting plumber, then go create, like, why not? That's a differentiator.
So it really is about, it doesn't matter. It's as long as you're being authentically you and who you are.
Dude. Yeah. And if you want to show up that way. The only reason I'm not that political on social media is I don't want to busy myself. I like the conversations I'm having. I want to have this guy. I'm interested in the work I do. I started 2 Market Media around the work I was doing with Mel and with Grant and with, I like fame and attention and monetizing it and figuring out how to actually connect to other human beings and what that means and how to use these tools today. I'm not trying to I can have tons of political conversations. It's just not part of my brand because I want to busy my day with the things I actually enjoy.
Which then comes through because I can sense your energy and your excitement and your passion towards what you're saying. And that's why you should talk about those things because you're passionate about
100%.
it.
If you're passionate about politics, dude, then get after it. I love that.
Yeah. Great questions. So many to stay away from those. Just making sure that's kind of the same question. Yeah, I think the question becomes, as you said, and that's why I loved it, about what am I protecting if I'm avoiding something? What am I actually protecting during those conversations? Okay, so social media, what about, we're doing a podcast here, and podcasts seem to have come on and then they went away and now they seem to be really strong again. Why the power of a podcast? Should everyone do a podcast? From my point of view, of course, and any strengthening of this muscle. So Instagram stories or like the light weights for the gym. This is like a 30-minute, 45. This is a real exercise, dude. Like getting Mel on the radio and her understanding how to structure a full hour of show is prepared. If Mel doesn't hit it out of the park in a week in daytime syndication, then I failed 9 years ago. Because this muscle of really understanding how to structure a show. And I know podcasts, nobody studies the old craft of radio and television. Like everybody just moved to this one thing. But if I was going to do a show, and I do, and not me personally, but if I do and I'm working with somebody, I still have acts. I still have hot topics at the top. I still put the guest second. I do questions with the audience third. I still would structure a show how radio and television have always been done. Radio became television. All we're doing is going back, and nobody's used to or understands the rules. But there are rules to this game, and they're worth practicing. And they're certainly worth knowing if you want to break them, but they're definitely worth doing because they make you better. They make you more money. This is the biggest lead gen you will ever have. Let me tell you the 2 reasons. Not just because people are going to understand who Chaz Wilson is because, hey, I saw your podcast, it was awesome. No. And not just because all the people that are famous or have audiences like I do and introduce you to new audiences. No, that's not it either. The biggest lead gen about having your own show is you can call anyone and say, somebody that I've been dying to do business with, I want to have you on my show. So true. And now you have a business connection to the guy you could never get next to because you have a reason to call. I mean, that reason, that guys, circle that, asterisk that. I can't even tell you the number of people. It's been the same for us. And when we started, I had a good show. I was being interviewed, and it was a great start for me to get that muscle of getting on. And so wherever you start, just start. But I remember when we started working together, you guys said to me, Chaz, there's no value in you being interviewed. Go get people on your show and interview them. And I was like, wait, I don't even understand that at first. I'm like, wait. If I'm trying to be, and this is the advice I had been given up to that point, if I'm trying to be the thought leader, I should be the one being interviewed. Then that wasn't the case at all. To your point, I can reach out to people that wouldn't take my phone call before or whatever it is to say, hey, I want to invite you in front of my audience. I'm serving first. Come in front of my audience. Let's talk. Let's put you on my show. And that's so valuable. Such a great reason to have a podcast. Now, I want to ask you kind of a little bit off topic of that question, but you said something that made me think of this. You've worked with these great people like Barbara Walters, Grant Cardone, Mel Robbins. Has there ever been anyone that you went to work with that you were a little nervous to work with? Maybe their star celebrity like made you nervous, or are you just like, I'm comfortable with anybody?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not just a matter of comfort. I still have the star factor, but what I like the best outside of meeting someone who's this big star, it's then getting to know them on the other side. Like the fun part is for me is the debunking of the star power, right? Like it's like everyone has somebody they idolize, and as they say, be careful meeting your heroes, because I've met tons of my heroes and they fall apart instantly. Who you think somebody is not who they necessarily actually are. Grant is what has changed, and this is what's awesome about social is Grant, Mel, people that are representing themselves in social, because we reward honesty, vulnerability, authenticity. The idea of you being yourself is so much more rewarded today that you're more likely to meet the person that you follow on social than you would an old celebrity type.
You said we reward them with what? Our attention, because they're being transparent and authentic? Yeah. That's great. So how do they, I know you have a course that people can learn about this process and the steps and everything. How can they find that?
If you just go to hanknorman.com or .guru, I own all my domains because someone tried to buy them out from under me. Okay. So yeah, I have a course that I bundled everything together. I've actually put 2 main courses, even a third little one that I've bundled all together. That is literally everything I've learned and teach to my clients, people I coach one-on-one, is this process of how do you actually begin to build the muscle of putting yourself out there? What do I say? Like, what do you, like literally finding what you stand for? Like, sure, I understand the fear of what do I say, because it's like, well, what do I stand for? So I've designed this whole thing to literally give you that boost and that insight into yourself and your brand, so you actually know what you're talking about. And
yeah, you guys definitely should go find this. Go to hanknorman.com, find this course, take it. This guy's a genius in helping people build their celebrity brand, their star power, their marketing prowess, of understanding what it takes to be that voice in a space that sometimes is crowded. Sometimes there's a void in that you just need to step forward and be that voice for people. But many times it's crowded. And how do you stand out, and how do you be that voice?
I love crowded spaces, Chaz. That's my favorite, because that's where we're making decisions on people's personality and the charisma they have and the passion they have for the thing that they're doing, dude. That's who we want to do business with. We don't we can buy products from just anybody. I can buy anything at anywhere at any time. What's the differentiator? The who. Who am I buying it from? Do I like them? Are they cool? Are they smart? Are they really want to help me? Like, that's who we're buying from.
So, okay, I'm going to make a confession here on this, and you've really helped me. You guys have helped me so much with this, but I was on a podcast. I was being interviewed. To your point, I was being interviewed, and somebody said, well, what's the difference between Master Networks and ABC Company? And before the muscle had become so clear, before I even thought through the answer of why I should protect myself from this answer, I said, me? He's like, well, what do you mean? I said, because none of the other organizations have a leader that's out in front being the voice of entrepreneurs, that's out helping them. Now, I have a culture and I have a system and all this, but this is one of the differentiators is me. Yeah. And I was like, boy, that came off maybe arrogant, maybe like, and then I start questioning everything. But the reality is there's truth to that answer. And so what you guys help people understand is to be authentically you, be that voice, get out there and say that. And so as you watch these people that you're helping, people like me and Grant and all these others, what's the reward for you?
Well, I love it. I've just been doing this version for 10 years. So as I refine my public speaking, I get to talk more and more about how I understand that literally the conversation I think we've been having since the very beginning is this is about self-confidence. What I love about it is I see myself drip by drip. Going to the gym doesn't just build your muscles. My gym builds you full of self-esteem, dude. I get to see people go from, I don't know if I can do this, to Mel was one of those people. Mel only wanted people to like her. Mel got into the business, was interested in the media because she just wanted adulation as a low self-esteem person. And her anxiety played a big piece in that. But the 5-second rule is just the realization of Mel saying, this is the last piece that I can't let hold me back. And
well,
helped push Mel through all those layers.
So what people see today, obviously, is a product that evolved over those 9 years.
Oh my God, yeah. And her whole life. And to Mel's credit, she was a public defender in Manhattan, a criminal attorney, a Fortune 500 coach to CEOs. Like, Mel has a persona that's pushed, but she also had an insecurity that was crippling her. And she's learned the tools through the use of the media to overcome them. This system, the media, pressing record, showing up every day and being accountable and giving advice and helping the customer, the client, you're attracting attention, is empathy, dude.
So this can work for anyone, is what you're saying. Like, the it factor, or the people who are outgoing naturally, as they would say, like the extrovert, hey, they've got all this energy. But yet there's also another side where you say somebody like Mel, who had this maybe anxiety and this fear and this wanting to be liked, like, she was able to overcome that to a place of where she's at today. So somebody listening right now saying, well, yeah, that's worked for everyone else, but I'm just not that exciting, or I'm not that interesting. They should still get started and do it.
That's your self-talk. That's your story. And
right.
If you commit to this gym, if you want to grow as a person and your business, this is how you do that. This gets you out of your own way.
Yeah. So with Master Networks, we're networking, right? We're relationship building. What about those that say it's social network? How do you make that connection? We talked a little bit about it one-on-one, but how else can I use these tools to make connections to grow my business? And we'll kind of wrap with that. And then I have one last question for you.
Well, if you're talking about actual networking rather than sales, but I see them as the same thing, right? The more you're adding value, anytime you want to, even when you're networking, I think people think of networking as just, even if we're at this, we're both CEOs, we're both this, and it's like, hey, we both have this. No, dude, when you show up and I show up and I'm coming to meet Chaz Wilson, dude, I'm already going to have done my homework and be like, this is how I can help.
Yes.
These same ideas of what social media is. Social media requires you to be an expert. Social media requires you to become a coach. You're giving me advice. Help me somehow. Why am I reading your Twitter? Why am I watching this video? Because it's going to help me. So help me. So when you learn to show up of someone who is of aid, and here are the tools and the things I can do that no one else can do, let me help you in your business in this way. That's master networking.
So good. So good. The likes, the hearts, you're getting a ton, my friend, because you're speaking truth and wisdom and value to our audience. Thank you for doing that. Okay, I want to ask you a question. Now, Tim Story, great Tim Story, asked me this I was interviewed on his podcast. He asked me this question. I told him I'm going to steal this question because I loved it.
You know I coach Tim too, right?
I do, right? I mean, listen, I mean, I guess I could list 100 names and you guys coach all of them, because that's also, so let me back up. Now you threw me a loop, but I'm going to tie this together. But that's also what's fascinating, is one of the values that happens when you have successful people is then that creates a network. And the network of successful people is also what attracted me. It wasn't just the information. And that's why I think the local service providers need to understand there's information, and then there's the network that they have that they can provide to their clients. And you guys have a great network too. Like Grant Cardone, Mel Robbins, Tim Story, I mean, the list goes on. A lot of the people I've had on my show are your clients, and I've become friends with a lot of them. So Tim Story asked me this question. It really threw me because I'd never been asked a question like this. And he said, this is like in business, often we don't have these bragging moments, right? Because we're trying to be like, So he said, what's the proudest moment you've ever had in business where you were like, dang, I did that? So Hank, what's the proudest moment you've had in business where you said, man, we did this. We accomplished this?
I thought a we, it's a me, and I've told this from stage a bunch of times because it really is 100% the truth. The difference between Grant before me and after me is Grant was adamant not to tell his personal story. He, for personal reasons, was like, it doesn't make sense. And I understood him intellectually. It doesn't make sense for me to talk about being a drug addict. It doesn't make sense for me to dwell in negative emotions of the past. It doesn't serve me. And I don't think it would serve anyone in my audience. So why would I share that story? And I sat in his house and I looked him in the eye, and with all due respect, I'm being more kind now. For some reason, I'm actually telling the story from a much lower energy. I was like, dude, I hear you, but you're wrong. You're dead wrong. And getting Grant to see that something else, taking what we all do, right? Here's my story. Here's the thing I'm going to hold on to. I'm scared I don't share my family because I don't want somebody to say whatever it is I'm scared they're going to say. And that story we hold on to, I was able to make Grant open that up and examine it and now share his story. And I do believe without him actually sharing his story of origin, there would be no 10X movement. There would be no people going, if he can do that, I can do that. And so I take 100 for who Grant is through his personal story and explaining what he went through to build what he's had to build in the face of drug addiction, having no job, being unemployed, like being near death. Him sharing that created a movement that became 10X. And that would then help Grant move into speaking taking that as his own job rather than just showing up. All of that to me came from me cracking Grant open. I 100% take credit for that.
It's awesome. And I'm going to add just one thing to that, because having studied the things and watching him and paying attention, the attention that but not only did he just go there, like he went all in on it. Like he's telling it in every book and every time he's on stage, and so it became not just, okay, I'll open the window a crack. He just opened it and it's wide open. You can see in.
That's Grant. That's the 10X rule, right? If he's going to do it, then he just literally jumps into it all the way. And it's like, whatever's going to happen. I'm literally doing this. So he went from, I'm not doing it to, okay, I'm doing it.
So good. So good. Guys, we've been blessed today to have Hank Norman on Connect, Share, Prosper. So many valuable wisdom. I think the hardest part for me was all the different rabbit holes I felt like we could go down. And I'm like trying to give everyone just a snapshot, but it's so good. Guys, go to hanknorman.com, find this course, go to this course. We'll put it in the show notes. Go check out this course. It literally has changed many things for me, and not only just from the execution, but the way I'm thinking about the things I'm doing, the long-lasting legacy that they build, and the ability to turn this on, and this muscle of just going through that motion of turning this on. And I've shared with many people. There was a day I was feeling really, really inadequate, and I kept battling it. And I can hear you guys in my head, you and Steve in my head, And I went back to my hotel room at this conference. I turned the phone on, I put it in the tripod. I went Facebook Live, and I told, here's why I'm feeling inadequate as a CEO. And it's still one of my highest viewed Facebook Lives still to this day. I mean, to your point, I'm crediting your point.
It's the real and raw. You opened up at a time that was difficult, and people go, I wish I had that strength. And as you know, it's not strength, it's vulnerability. It's the worst version. You don't feel like doing it.
And then it comes off as strength, which is amazing, this sort of dichotomy of this, right? So, Hank, so honored you take the time today, be on the show, and add so much value. Thank you for being on Connect, Share, Prosper. Guys, every Monday, although it's Tuesday because of the holiday, but every Monday, noon Central, I bring successful entrepreneurs to you, just like Hank, who just share valuable wisdom for you. And so throughout this, if you post comments, questions, whatever, I'll get those back out to Market Media and to Hank, and we'll see if we can get those answered for you. Thank you, Hank, for being on Connect, Share, Prosper.
Thanks,
guys.
Hank.
So much wisdom shared today. Go back and listen to this. Share what you can to those who need to hear this message about being the power player, the celebrity in their market. Thanks, Hank, for being on Connect, Share, Prosper.
Thanks for having me, Chaz. I appreciate it.